Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. It's Charlie G. Today I'm going to decipher these 4 retirement saving plans that you can start if you haven't done so already, and explaining the benefits of having them. And that's your 401k, your IRA, Roth IRA, and your HSA. So how does these benefit us? When you retire and you hit the age of 65, you're going to need money because you'll no longer be working. Most of us won't be. I don't know about you, but I do plan on retiring by the age of 65. And at that point, I just need money coming in to be able to pay for things and just be able to live life. These things are very essential. You can use your 401k, IRA, Roth IRA to be able to still get some income, some form of money coming in. And your HSA, believe it or not, you can actually use it right now to pay for medical expenses and anything medical related. It essentially serves the same purpose for when you retire as well. So besides saving you a lot of money for when you get much older, these things also help reduce your taxes every single year, your taxable income every single year. You pretty much give Uncle Sam less money. So let's use the scenario that I love using. $60,000 a year, you're bringing in $3,500 a month roughly, right? But now let's say you want to contribute 20% of your income towards your 401k. Let's break down this math on what that means. So 20% of $60,000 is $12,000, meaning you'll only be really making $48,000. And the government calculates all that as well. So they're not going to tax you on the whole $60,000, but instead they're taxing you on just $48,000. So what that also means is that you're paying a lesser percentage in taxes. So the less you make, the less percentage in taxes that you actually pay Uncle Sam. So instead of paying taxes 30% rate on $60,000, you're paying maybe 25% on the $48,000 that you're only being taxed on. From $3,500 monthly, you're only now getting $3,000 monthly. Now I'm going to show you the benefits of that, because if we were to get taxed at 30% at the $48,000, we would essentially make $2,800. So we're actually making an extra $200 by contributing to our 401k. We're saving some form of money being put away from Uncle Sam's pocket into our 401k, and the 401k is yours. It is yours. So when you retire, when you hit a much older age, you're able to do whatever you want and splurge a little bit, live your life, go on these vacations and all these things using that 401k that you have. The 401k is like a bank. Pretty much you are a bank and you're creating this bundle of wealth from an early age, or as young as you are. And it's never too late to start. So if you start today and let's say you're retiring in 30 years, you'll have all this bundle of money. So it works very much like a bank, because not only does it help you save, it also is a tool you can use to borrow from as well. You can take a loan from your 401k, and it better be for good use, like to put a down payment on a home. Don't just take a loan just because, but you are able to take a loan from your 401k. And the other benefit of it is it grows over time because it is tied to the market. Average return of many people's 401k is about 7%. So every year your money grows about 7%, give or take. And that's the average growth. That doesn't mean every year is going to be exactly 7%. It might be a little bit more, a little bit less, or even negative some years as well. But essentially over the course of, let's say 10 years, your 401k portfolio should be growing about 7%. By the time you retire, it's going to be a lump sum of money. So let's break down that math, right? So let's say you're giving $12,000 out of your paycheck a year to your 401k. Over the course of 30 years, you would expect that to be $360,000. Nope. So that number is actually much higher because of the growth that your 401k goes through every single year. Those 7% gains is called compound interest. And your money grows over time. So 7% of that $12,000 that you put in over the course of 30 years is actually a little over $1.2 million. I know, a lot more than you actually put in. but that's because we're having a bit of interest growth on it every single year through the investments that our money is being placed into. Let's talk about IRA. It works very similar to a 401k. The plus side to it is that you can invest in funds that are not tied to your employer. Your 401k is only offered to you while you're working for a company. But the IRA, actually, you don't have to be working for anyone. And you can control that money however you want. You can buy and sell stocks, mutual funds, bonds, all these different things. Whatever the platform that you're using makes available to you. Whatever brokerage you used to use will have everything available to you. And there may be fees for certain things, but there's usually free trades that you can do using an IRA. The drawback to the IRA is that you cannot borrow against it. Unlike the 401k, which is tied to an employer, and while you're working, you can take a loan from it, an IRA does not work the same way. Although it has its positive, you cannot borrow from an IRA. It's just money that's going to be sitting there. You can only do a hard withdrawal, which is the 10% penalty, which I think only in certain circumstances, like if there's a big pandemic or something crazy going on, the government will essentially ease out on the rules on that, where you will not be charged the penalty. However, you will still have to pay taxes on it. You always pay taxes on either options. However, the loan on the 401k is tax free pretty much because it's essentially your bank. You're pretty much putting the whole money back in. Now, when you're putting the money back into the loan for the 401k, it is post-tax. If we borrowed money against our 401k and we're making $3,000 a month, we would be pretty much paying out of that $3,000. It wouldn't be coming out before the $3,000. It would be coming after. So whatever your net is, whatever you get to come home, whatever is on your check, it will be coming out of that. Whatever you're supposed to get, it will be coming out of that back into your 401k. That's how the 401k loan works. Another thing about the 401k loan is you can only take up to half of the value. As long as you haven't borrowed anything, you can take up to half of that amount. You can take a loan for half of the amount. That is just standard how it works. Now let's talk about Roth IRA. So Roth IRA is very similar to the IRA where you have both the benefits, right? You can trade and buy stocks, mutual funds, and different things. And the brokerage will provide you certain free trade on certain funds, ETF, things like that. And same drawback as well, where your money is pretty much, you cannot take a loan from that money. And the only way for you to be able to get some of that money is to take a hardship withdrawal, again with the penalties. However, the plus side to the Roth IRA is that it grows tax-free, meaning if you put in $50,000 and it gained $80,000 to become a value of $130,000, you would not be paying taxes on that 80 grand that you gained at all. It would be tax-free. If you did the same gain on an IRA, you would be paying taxes on the $80,000 that had grown, right? So that's the drawback. The Roth IRA has that advantage. Which one do you use? If you are leaving a job and going to another job, I always recommend just rolling over into the 401k. It has much better options, right? You're tied to the market. You have the max amount of value, unlike the Roth IRA. And also, you can take a loan from it, which is the downside to both the Roth IRA and IRA. You cannot do that with the other two. But the 401k, you can. And it's still tied to the market as well. They all three have that advantage because they all can be tied to the market. Now, if you're leaving a job and don't have another job to roll it into, then of course you don't really have much of a choice. You have to choose between the IRA and the Roth IRA. But I would always pick the IRA in that instance because the bigger of money that you can have, always make that available to you. It's always better to pay taxes later on because you can control it. You don't know what medical expense you'll have in the future or whatever tax deductible expense you'll have in the future. So it's better that you have the most of your money that you are able to make those expenses. Let's say, for example, in 30 years from now, you have to do this surgery and it costs $1 million. right? And you have $1 million exactly $1 million in your 401k or your IRA, right? You can easily pay off that $1 million in expense using the full value of your 401k or IRA. However, with the Roth IRA, because the fact that you chose to do the Roth IRA from beginning when it was doing its growth, the value of it was only $500,000. So now you cannot pay for this with $500,000. You still have to come up with another $500,000 somewhere else. Unlike the Roth IRA, the IRA gives you the full value of your money. So does the 401k, because it is before tax. You can always control the amount of income you pay yourself from the IRA or 401k. So it's always better to have D2 above the Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is if you had a very small amount of money or you're about to retire, then yes, I could understand. You put that towards the Roth IRA and you don't pay taxes on the growth because you can do some trades and make some big value and you pay no taxes on it. That's the advantage. But for the most part, you're young and you're not close to the retirement age, it's always better to do the 401k followed by the IRA if the 401k option is not available to you. That's just the way it is. And the last thing I want to touch upon is the HSA. So that's the health savings plan, right? Your health savings plan allows you to save for medical expenses. Unlike the other two, you can actually use that money right away to pay for medical bills or anything, because it's pretty much like a debit card where it's being preloaded pre-tax from money that you get from your job. But you can use that money right away. You don't have to wait until you're 65. If you don't use that money and it piles up over the course of the 30 years, and let's say you have 100,000 over the course of the 30 years, that money is still available to you. You do not lose the money from the HSA. It's just pretty much another 401k, but you have access to it. You can use it to pay for these medical expenses. And it works the same way. If you want to do a withdrawal from it before the age of 65, you will have to pay a penalty and taxes as well. However, if you do it after 65, you can still use it to pay your medical expenses. But the advantage it has is that you can also pay yourself similar to the 401k. So you only pay taxes on the portion that you pay yourself. So you can really control the taxes later on in the future with having all these different saving plans all set up. And the younger you do it, the better it is for you, because the money really stretches and grows over time. It's better not to wait and just get started with it. It doesn't matter the value in the beginning. It's really about just starting it and getting it going. Once you start bringing in more income, then you can put more towards these things. I've been maxing my 401k for the past 3-4 years because I pay a lot of taxes, and I've been contributing to an HSA, max it out as well for the past 2 years. Again, for tax reasons for myself. Because I pay so much taxes, I'm trying to reduce my taxes as much as possible. Because of the fact that this money, you're not going to be able to really touch it for the next 30 or something years, you can take a loan from it for a down payment and then pay that cash back a little bit over time. Even though you pay interest on the loan you take out, the interest comes back to you. You pay interest to yourself. Remember, you are the bank in this instance. It's important that we wisely choose how we do our money. So it's better to have, if you had $20,000 in down payment you had to do for a home, it's better to have that cash and take a loan from your 401k and pay like a few $100s a month and have the $20,000. And you can always pay early as well. So let's say you had a surplus of money, you can say, all right, I want to put the whole amount back into my 401k loan. It's much better to have that flexibility instead of, if you have $20,000 in cash, put that down for the home. No, I would say hold on to that $20,000 cash that you have just in case for emergency reasons, and do a loan from your 401k. The remainder value will continue to grow. It won't grow as fast because you don't have as much in there. You're able to make it less painful for yourself by doing this strategy. And these are tricks and things I've done along the way that I've seen have worked for me, has allowed me to save a lot more, allow me to get more back in taxes because my taxable income is less, all these things. And I really hope to see the benefits once I hit the age of 65. And I can enjoy and splurge, go on some vacations, and just, you know, enjoy myself and have a good time. But all these things come along the way. So we have to start now and just get on it. It doesn't matter how much. If you could do 2%, 3%, 5%, it doesn't really matter. Just set aside some for your 401k and an HSA. You need those two to be able to really reduce your taxes and also save for yourself in the long run. So please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Drop a comment if you can. Let me know your thoughts. And if you have any suggestions or anything you want me to talk about and share with you, please do so. And peace and love.